Welcome, welcome everyone to another edition of Live Better. Listen, I want you all to please share. Share right now, share this because we have great information today. My guest today is going to give us some excellent information on men's health. I'll say men's health, but he's going to talk to us about how we got there and
Yeah.
where we're going with that as far as men's health. Men's health, and even when we talk about health, we talk about the holistic nature of it. So I love this story that we have today with our guest, Dominic Perviaus. Perviaus. I'm going to get it
Perviance.
right.
Yeah.
Dominic Perviaus. He is here today. He is a Morehouse man.
Yes, sir.
He also works at the Federal Reserve Bank. But I want you to tell the audience a little bit about who you are and tell us what you're doing here today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Again, my name is Dominic Perviaus. I am one of the co-founders of a nonprofit organization called King Culture.
Mhm.
And just a little bit about my story. I came to Atlanta just about 20 years ago. I went to Morehouse and went to Georgia Tech, and I majored in urban planning because my heart was to figure out how I can help restore and build cities.
Mhm.
And as I originally from Baltimore and grew up during a time when the Baltimore was going through a tough time, like a lot of
Mhm.
American cities.
Mhm.
And I had a heart for ministry, but I wanted to figure out how you can rebuild communities by rebuilding people.
Mhm.
And I eventually, when I got out of school, I was uh, worked for developers, spent most of my career in the real estate industry, kind of studying the market and the economy and housing, kind of what's going on in the housing market. But in the background, I was a young man trying to find my career and trying to find my way on my own.
Mhm.
And I realized, particularly when I was in my 20s, that most of us have to we're stuck in a situation when we're going through these major transitions in our lives, like leaving our parents and starting our career, starting our family. We feel like we have to figure everything out on our own,
Mhm.
and it was a big struggle for me. I had profound failures and setbacks, and I really wanted to really praying about around the time when I turned 30 just for answers, if
Mhm.
I could have some sort of direction of what it meant to be a man and sort
Mhm.
of some guidelines for growing as a man.
Mhm.
And the idea that I came up with, if I had to sum up, everything that I think a man is in this one idea that a man is a king who lives by code and who fights for a cause.
Mhm.
And being a king simply means that you are willing to take on responsibility for being a leader within your sphere of influence. And
Say that again because I think we hear king. I hear king said
yeah, yeah,
all the time, right?
yeah.
And so I love that definition. Give it to us one more time. What a king is.
Yeah, it's about being able to lead by giving of yourself for the benefit of others
Mm.
within your sphere of influence,
Mhm.
and it's really the model that Christ, quite honestly, gives
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
We were talking earlier about in Ephesians 5 when Paul talks to
Yes.
husbands. He says, "Okay, you ought to love your wife the way Christ loved the church,
Mhm.
in that He gave Himself for her."
Mm.
And it's not about you being a man or you being a husband, like you're in charge and all that stuff. No,
Mhm.
it's about you sacrificing yourself, that you're loving by giving of yourself for the benefit of others, and that's what makes you a man.
Mm.
That's what makes you a leader.
Mhm.
And so just a few years ago, I had all of these ideas in my head, and I wrote it down in a curriculum. I had some books I was working on, and I
Mhm.
was sharing it with other men, and it really impacted their lives. And I realized that I wasn't the only one along this journey
Mhm.
that needed direction and instruction. And it was more acute for African American men because a lot of us, we may not have grown up with a male role model in our lives, and we
Mhm.
had to be conditioned to figuring out things on our own. But really, I found it's an issue for most men
Mm.
because we are conditioned to believe that our value is determined by our performance and our display of strength,
Yes.
and we um, end up not being able to handle when life happens and when the thing that we built our value on doesn't seem to work.
Mm.
And so I one of the core ideas that I thought a lot about when I was really in my own personal journey is I realized that if you tie your sense of value to anything that's subject to change,
Mm-hmm.
like your career, your success, how much money you have, whether you're married, single, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
if you tie your sense of value to any of those things, you're always going to feel insecure. And there's so many, as men, we tie our value to a perceived sense of strength.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that if we can show that we're strong,
Mm-hmm.
then our that gives us a greater sense of value, and therefore we can't admit any sign of weakness whatsoever. It's one of the reasons why health is such a challenge for us. Or going to see a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
or admitting that we have something wrong with us, because
Yes.
it's perceived as a sign of weakness. And so I've had to sort of wrestle with those things in my personal life, and the guys that you know um, I've been able to mentor and work with throughout nonprofit. Um, but so long story short, we decided to me and my co-founder decided to create a nonprofit called King Culture.
Mm-hmm.
And King Culture is designed to equip men to be selfless leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So a selfless leader is sort of encapsulates all of these ideas of manhood that we've been talking about. And King Culture does two things. We provide content,
Mm-hmm.
that's curriculum for um, individual men or churches or communities that actually have groups of men that they're trying to serve and help develop.
Mm-hmm.
Or we also, and so it could be curriculum, books. We have a podcast which we're going to talk about, and we have a pretty heavy social media presence. And our target is primarily men from 18 to 34,
Mm-hmm.
and that's sort of the age where guys are going through a lot of transitions. So you're leaving your
Yes.
parents and going to college, or you're going to college or starting your career, you're starting your family, and you have all of these ups and downs, and you're
Mm-hmm.
entering new arenas that you've never lived in before, and you're facing new challenges.
Or
You're
even socialized to
Yeah,
be in.
yeah,
Like you were saying earlier, I'm thinking about how men are not socialized to express their emotions.
right,
That's a sign of weakness, right?
right,
Or to communicate in ways that show vulnerability.
yeah.
And so during those times of transition, uh, how are you all helping with that?
Yeah, what I find is guys tend to be more open to ask questions and to listen when they're in a moment of transition.
Mm,
So when you're entering a world that's new for you, like I'm in this career and I'm trying to figure it out, or
hmm
I just got married, or I'm about to get married. Okay,
Yes.
I need help
Mhm.
to try to. Normally, we like to, you know, feel like we have everything under control. But the guys who reach out to us, who connect with our content,
Mhm.
are guys that realize, okay, I need some help. I
Mhm.
need some help figuring it out, and it takes some humility to be able to admit
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And it's just been a blessing. I've had guys that I've walked with and personally mentored through this process. I watched them go from being single on their own, just kind of just out there trying to figure out life, to being husbands and fathers, and successful in their career.
I love it.
And it's been great knowing that in a small way, that God used us to invest in men at these critical moments in their lives, and watching them grow and mature, and still facing challenges, but now equipped to know how to handle them.
I
So
love
it's,
that.
it's been exciting.
I love that. I love that. I love when you mention how receptive men are and when they're receptive. I think
Yeah.
that's the thing. We like to give information out, but it has to be when the person's receptive.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat guys over the head with stuff. They have to be ready and open to listen,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be surprised how, if you're willing to communicate to guys where they are,
Mm-hmm.
and give them space to ask questions and to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we live in a society where there isn't a whole lot of space for you just to sit and express what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly for men, when we
Absolutely.
get together, we talk about sports and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
When you provide an environment where you're like, look, we're going to talk about, you know, your mental health. We're going to talk about your sense of identity, like
Mm-hmm.
what's going on there,
Mm-hmm.
or or how you're managing your health. guys want to talk. They're just not given an opportunity to.
Wow.
And so when you open the floor and let guys talk and not preach at them, but let them get out what's going on and ask the questions and sort of hold conversations that they're not really having in everyday life, I find that guys are very open. It hasn't been that difficult.
I love it. I love it. They want to talk, y'all. But we be doing all the talking sometimes. I know we do. But also, like you said, that space, that safe space. And so I'm hoping that, well, I'm already knowing you are going to be providing safe spaces for men, more men.
One of Dr. Gino's strengths in his preaching to me is his ability to situate the listener.
Transition is hard. In fact, I dare say that it's one of the most difficult things to do. I mean, in a real sense, it is so hard that in one, it produces fear.
You pick an image that we all can relate to. What do you love most about your practice of African American preaching? Go.
My practice of African American preaching is steeped in Zora Neale Hurston's Negro expression. When we sing a song, it's sung a lot differently. When we do a dance, it's done a lot differently. When we preach a sermon, it's done a lot differently because we take it through our struggle and we adorn it and beautify it. And we've had to dare to find God and mine hope so that we might be able to know that the trouble that we go through doesn't last always.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Please send us relief, oh God. Lord.
I want to encourage everyone that has new music out or has new music coming out to not be grand. Get out there and work. If Mary Mary still have to promote a record, if Kirk Franklin still has to promote a record, you do too. So get out there and grind and don't wait for it to come to you. Go get it. There's space for all of us.
Just like a river now. May it guard our heart. May it guard our heart. Tell somebody.
Listen, we're talking right now about men's health, but we're talking about really holistic health and what that looks like, and even providing spaces for men with Dominic Perviaus. And if you have not already, share this. Make sure that you're sharing this. Listen, talk to us about how you have birthed King Culture. And I know that you have different segments or different areas in King Culture.
Right.
One of them is health, but what are the other ones that you're doing as well?
So King Culture has 7 core attributes that are connected to, 6 core attributes that are connected to selfless leadership.
Okay.
So one, we've been sort of talking about a little bit, and that's inherent dignity. So learning to find your value just in being you and not connected to how you perform or the different things that are subject to change. And so that's sort of the foundation, the foundation of selfless leadership is inherent dignity. And then there's personal agency. That's about you being able to manage yourself and have personal leadership. Then there's a sense of responsibility. That means for the world around you. A spirit of bravery. That's about men being able to go out and take risk and fight for the things that they believe in. Then there's an air of nobility. So for me, nobility is about being able to give of yourself for the benefit of others. And that's sort of the apex of manhood, right? To me, the goal of manhood is not for you to, it's not self-actualization. It's actually self-sacrifice. It's about being able to give of yourself. And the best of you is only achieved when you're able to give yourself for the benefit of others. And I hope that's what I believe Christ demonstrates for us.
Yes.
and lastly is a plan of longevity. And the plan of longevity is you being able to not only build a plan in your life to make sure that you're able to succeed in the things that God has given you, but it also means being equipped to invest in a generation that is going to come behind you. And out of that idea, that last attribute, plan of longevity, we started. You and I are on a committee with Emory Hospital here in DeKalb County, and we were talking about ways that we can help invest in the community. And we had this idea of focusing on men's health, and we connected it to that last attribute of selfless leadership, having a plan for longevity. And what we wanted to do was to create some content for men, to equip them to better manage their health, to lead to better long-term health outcomes. And it's been an extraordinary journey. It's taken us a year to get to this point. We had several interviews with doctors and medical professionals. We talked to young men kind of in that age range of 18 to 34, asking how they perceive health, how they manage their health, some of the challenges they have. And then we talked to medical professionals, and we got a lot of content and advice from them on things like prevention and mental health and navigating the healthcare system, which is a challenge for a lot of us, all the way to end-of-life care. And so we have, we're rolling out a podcast that covers all of those topics, so runs for about 8 weeks. But we also have a survey that guys can take that'll actually give them a score of how well they manage their health. And then we have some content that helps them develop their own personal strategy, their health strategy that will lead to better long-term outcomes. So it's a big initiative. We've been working really hard on it, and we're very proud of how things have turned out so far.
What advice would you have for those who are thinking about bringing organizations into their communities to have change and impact?
What I say to communities and to small businesses is really tap into your chamber of commerces, your business organizations, your faith-based institutions in the area, organizations that provide services to your community, because there are a lot of entities who are present to provide services, but oftentimes people aren't aware of them. But when you start with places like your faith-based institutions and your chambers, they usually have a resource, a portfolio of resources that they can put people in contact with.
You all know him, my boy, Will Smith.
His tone is a very conversational tone, and he has the ability to be a storyteller because he is a, actor. And so this book was more of a page turner.
I really enjoyed hearing and listening to him narrate the book. Also, I think it was a really great book because he was just so open and honest. And I mean, I don't think he really left anything out. I mean, he talked about everything in the book.
And I just want to throw this out there, that this is basically one of my favorite memoirs. And you know how I feel about the other book that I have read.
So with the men from 18 to 34, what was what connected them to health, or what didn't connect them to health? What was the barrier, or what was something that helped them?
Yeah, so when you're at that age, you're not prioritizing health.
No.
And so that came out very clearly in our conversation. It's like we're trying to make money, we're trying to succeed, we got all of these things going on. And you feel healthy, you feel like there's nothing wrong, you feel invincible. And it's not something you really think about. And so a lot of men in that age range are not really considering the decisions they're making and how they could potentially have some negative consequences long term. And so it was it was really a challenge to get guys to focus in on this. The ones that do are the ones that do out of necessity. They have some. It was the case for me. Like I didn't naturally have an interest in health either, but I had some personal challenges with health, and I had to figure it out. And take some bumps and bruises, and hopefully through my experience I'm able to now give some advice to other young men. And there are a lot of key things that we can kind of talk through that came out of our discussions that I would love for guys to incorporate in their personal strategy.
So with the health segment, which I'm excited about, you going through almost, it sounds like the lifespan of health, which is beautiful because we don't talk about that's another conversation that we're not having.
Yeah.
And to have it with men.
Yeah.
And to have that content available for men.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really hoping that they connect with that.
Yeah. I would say that there were a few surprises. And I would say the biggest surprise when we were talking to the medical experts is, and I kind of know this from my own experience too, how important it is for you to be equipped to advocate for yourself.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
It's
sir.
like you think you're going to go to the doctor and they're just going to do everything and they just prescribe what your solution. And when they figure out what's going on with you, they prescribe a solution. You go home and you take a pill and it's all over. And it doesn't work that way at all. I mean, you have to, when you go see a doctor, it's almost like you have to do some research before you go in. You have to understand the symptoms. You have to be able to have a clear line of communication when you're talking to a doctor so they can, because a lot of times, they are diagnosing what's going on with you based on what you tell them. And if you're not open and transparent, if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't know how to ask certain questions, there's a good chance that they may not give a full or accurate diagnosis. And so you have to know some things, and you also have to be equipped to advocate for what's best for you. And a lot of times, there are, solutions that are being offered that may not be best for how you do life. And it doesn't mean that, you should discount what a doctor says. Like, for example, for me, like I have always had like really bad back pain. I don't like to take pills. It's just not my thing.
Me either. Yes.
And so I prefer, if you, send me to physical therapy or tell me to exercise or stretch to be able to make myself more comfortable, then that's better for me. And it's not like there's anything wrong with taking pills. But for me, I prefer a different solution. And you have every right when you're communicating with a doctor to say, look, okay, what are my other options? And what can I do that fits within my lifestyle or my value system?
Wow.
And you have to be able to go equipped to be able to advocate for yourself when you see a doctor.
That is so good. So rich and I'm thinking about it when I think about older people, and sometimes they just, okay, the doctor said it and that's good. And I had someone talk about that, a doctor talk about that, advocating as an older person. Never thought about it for a man.
Yeah.
And the fact that, and I'm thinking about my 18-year-old, he's not going to ask a whole bunch of questions.
No.
So you're so right. Just advocating for ourselves and just men in general, advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
And asking the questions.
I actually thought when we were talking to doctors, you know how if you see anything wrong with you, the first thing you do is go to Google. Like, what is this?
I sure do. Yes.
And I've had Google put me in a grave a couple times.
Yes. Don't do it. Don't do it, y'all. Don't do it. Don't do it.
And so when we talk to doctors, and this will come out in a podcast, we're like, do you think that is it wise for people to go do the research? And they said, yes.
Wow. Okay.
Go do the research, because they even if the questions you come up with aren't really logical and don't make any sense, it's better for you to have those questions to ask than to not have anything to ask at all.
Wow.
And so that was a big surprise. The more equipped you are when you go see a doctor, the better you are able to advocate for yourself. And I guess the other things are, obviously prevention is better than having to see a doctor. And so all the stuff that we don't like to talk about how you ought to eat and how you ought to, exercise.
Yes, sir.
And so there are a lot of basic things that came out in our conversations. At least 20 minutes a day of exercise.
Yes.
Is good, is just a good practice. Drinking, 8 cups of water a day, especially for African Americans, we tend to, the big issues that came up in terms of medical issues are diabetes and hypertension.
Yes.
And so not eating a whole lot of salt and cholesterol and stuff like that. But drinking a lot of water, I just didn't, that was, I mean, people say that all the time, but I didn't understand how important it is for your health.
We in Sweet Tea Nation.
Yeah.
You know we are.
Yeah. So it's just, if you drink at least 4 bottles of water a day, that's 8-ounce cups of water. I mean, that's a basic practice. So things you don't have to do a whole lot of complicated. There's a lot of really complicated diets, and you can do the research, and all of those things are helpful. But there are certain just basic things. Just exercise, get 7-8 hours of sleep a night. Those basic things you do now will actually have some long-term benefits for you in the future.
I tell you, this is such great information. Such great information. I'm thinking about, just like you said, basic information that we should do, but even if we don't do those things, they're reminders of what we need to do.
Yeah. If there was one thing though, like if you don't do anything else, every man needs to have a doctor you see once a year. Get your annual blood work, annual physical.
Come on.
Because if you can catch things ahead of time, there's so many things that are just preventable if you are able to catch it early. And a lot of times what came out in our discussions is hospitals, and hospitals is put in a broad categories, doctors or whatever. That's the place where you go to die, right? And that's not the place you go to actually prevent negative health outcomes. And so we have to really change our perception of doctors and hospitals. You're ultimately responsible for how you manage your medical professionals, and you manage them to help you discover what's going on with you early and help you to make decisions about how you can reverse some of the negative things that they're seeing, if they see any. And so hospitals can be used as a tool. Doctors can be used as a tool for you to help you manage your health. But if you just do that one thing, that will save, that can potentially save your life. Just annual blood work and annual physical. And I just as a neat way to remember it, everyone has a birthday once a year. Just do it around your birthday.
Come on.
Make that a point. Go see a doctor.
Annually, go on your birthday, manage your medical professionals. I love that. Manage your health.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you're managing the people who are in charge of your health.
Yes.
And that's when you advocate. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good, because I was thinking we were talking about coming in and having something to say to the doctor. You have about 15 minutes. Y'all know we only got about 15 minutes. Have those questions ready. So if you come in once a year, I felt something behind my knee. I felt something wherever, have it ready to talk to the doctor about.
Yeah, and have some follow-ups.
Yes.
I pull on
that's
those
good.
doctors. You know, the worst thing about going to see a doctor is you go to some office, you're there for like 40 minutes, an hour. You
Yes.
may see a doctor for like 10 minutes.
Yes.
And so you maximize those 10
Yes.
minutes.
I go with a list. I sure do.
If you need to write it down, write it down.
Yes, I do.
But get the most out of them. And sometimes I don't let them leave until they answer my
That's so
questions.
good.
You know,
Especially for men. Y'all put it on your phone.
yeah.
Just put it in your notes and make sure you give it to them. Get all of your 10 minutes worth. Get all
Yeah.
your 10 minutes worth. Listen, this has been good. This has been so rich. You have so much information and a wealth of knowledge that men can really tap into. I want you to tell the audience about where they can connect with you and let them know if you got any parting words you want to give to them, let them know that too.
Right. And so you can find us on our website at kingculture.org. And there you'll find all the information on a broad variety of our content. If you want to get more information about the Plan for Longevity series on health, you can go to planforlongevity.org and you can find all of that content there. You can also find us on Instagram and on Facebook at King Culture Inc.
I sure appreciate you coming on the show today.
This has been
Thank
wonderful.
you. This has been so wonderful. I'm thinking that men are going to be changed. Great information that you've heard. Make sure you connect with Dominique and King Culture because it's about you kings today. Have a great day, and we'll see you later.